Angel Heart Radio programs should not be used to replace your legal or medical advice, nor your own sound judgment. In truth, nothing can dim your magnificence. You are a divine spark, a universal light. You are here on purpose. You are part of a divine plan. And it's our joy to support you. We're here to celebrate you. Welcome to Angel Heart Radio. Powered by love, Angel Heart Radio is brought to you by AngelLight777.com. A Divinely Ordered Life with spiritual teacher Deb Goldberg on Angel Heart Radio starts now.
Welcome everyone to Angel Heart Radio. I'm your host Deb Goldberg, and it is such a pleasure to be here with you today. And it's an honor to serve you in the highest ways that I can by bringing you messages of divine love and blessings for your life. You are dearly loved, cherished, and blessed. And we have a great show for you today. And I have Mark Bianchi here. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you. It's
I'm
nice to
so,
be here.
yeah, it's great to have you here. Mark is going to start a new show on Enlightened World Network that we're really excited about, and it's called Mindfulness. And so we named our show today Mindfulness Money Matters. Let me tell you a little bit about Mark. He's a former banking professional of 25 years for a Fortune 100 company, and Mark brings a vast array of life experience to the world of financial and life coaching. In this new series that we're starting on Enlightened World Network, he will bring on guests to discuss our relationships with money, planning, and the issues we face navigating those waters. Topics will include stretching your dollars, saving for retirement, aging parents, and various other issues most of us face as we age. Life can be challenging, but Mark will help us see how taking control and planning for both seen and unforeseen events can positively affect our stability and security through the years. So I hope you all have a wonderful time on our show today, and then tuning in to Mark's shows, which will be aired every other Wednesday, starting next Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm so grateful to bring you to Angel Heart Radio, and I thought it might be nice to actually start with some background of how did financing become your thing, or how did you get here today to do this?
Well, thank you, Deb, for that introduction. It actually started a very long time ago as I was growing up in a family business. My mom and dad were in the restaurant business. That's all I knew growing up. At a very early age, my parents saw to it that I was very comfortable with money and security and stability, and they kind of ingrained that in me. I continued down that path. I stayed in the restaurant business a little while, but then in my 30s, I branched out into the banking and financial profession. And I have a background as being a business analyst, financial analyst, business systems analyst, all related though to the world of money and credit and et cetera, that whole big world. In addition to that, I've always embraced my life experience of my financial common sense that I have in, trying to always balance a little bit of frugality with also trying to be a little bit spontaneous and living for the moment. I thought it's a perfect fit for the network here because we all want to be divinely conscious and open that part of our lives up and do something where we're happy and where we give back. But at the same time, we want to also always watch that we're not so far on that side that we forget about the day-to-day and the bills and the planning and the security and the stability. So I'm hoping to bring all of that to light, and by bringing it all together.
Well, I think it's a great concept for all of us because we talked about bringing spirituality and mindful money handling, being a good steward over your finances together, because at times it can feel like there's a gap between those two things.
There really can. Like you often find people view it very black and white, for lack of a better way to put it. You're either completely over here living for the moment. You only live once. You know, we've heard that expression a million times. And we've, you know, or we have like the people who think that in order to prepare for retirement, you have to live like a miser and scrape away every dime you make and never enjoy 1 minute of life. And there's the truth is there's a nice happy medium in between those two things. There is a lot to be said for, you know, I won't get too specific today. That's more what my show is about. But there's a lot to be said about, you know, finding happiness and simplicity. You know, not everything that you enjoy has to cost a ton of money. There's a lot of, you know, free or cheap hobbies, for instance, for, you know, in addition to many other interests you can have in life that don't cost a ton of money to still, you know, lead a full life. You know, being into family is wonderful. Being into your career is wonderful. Building that home, that security, that stability, it all can go hand in hand with also enjoying life. And that's what I want to kind of help teach people.
Yeah, and you know, not many of us had really good, stable teaching about finances. It's usually whatever your parents did, or did they even take the time to teach you what good stewardship is and different ways to view it. So we kind of, right? Like we kind of do what our parents do, and I know my parents, I didn't have a good foundation of how to handle money from them. And so then of course that affected me during my lifetime, and had to learn some skills to be better at that.
And another thing, you know, you bring up a great point, and I'm going to dive into that. I think that's going to be a show topic, is that unwillingness to discuss money freely. It's like it's almost this paradox, because it's this integral part of our lives, and yet it's almost treated like it's this taboo subject. You know, it's almost that don't ever discuss politics or religion, you know, when you're around friends or whatever. It's almost that same mindset. Whereas it should be something that you should be able to freely talk about and discuss, because we can all learn about that. And, you know, some of us had parents that, you know, in my particular case, I had one parent who was very, very frugal, and one who was more of the risk taker and more impulsive. And they sort of balanced each other out. And I think you find that a lot in relationships. And I think maybe sometimes a child will identify with one parent more than the other. Other times I think they may identify with the overall message from both parents and combine it in their own mind. That's kind of what I did. I didn't identify wholly with either parent. I kind of took looked at both sides, and kind of developed my own attitudes about money growing up. And that stigmatization, I would actually call it a stigmatization, where you have to almost be careful sometimes in a conversation. You have to almost worry not to come across like you're talk too much about money and security and stability, because you can be, there's almost like this, like a stigma. You're labeled as like, oh my God, he's so into money. But it's really not the case. It's kind of, because the picture, the real picture of money encompasses, it's not about just the green stuff. It's about your security in life, your stability, your ability to be able to retire and enjoy life someday, hopefully. It's all of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are all great points. And one of the things that came to my mind is also gender issues of how we deal with money, just being female or male, and how that works within a marriage or a relationship. You know, just thinking about understanding the way that my husband thinks about money or marriage, like it's a business.
Right.
It is a mutual business that you're you're both taking on to manage well. And for women, a lot of times money's an emotional issue.
Mhm.
And for men, it's not as emotional.
No, I have a very systematic and methodical mindset overall in life. I try to work on that because I don't want to be too much like that.
Hmm.
But when it comes to money, you're absolutely right. That is exactly how I think of it. I think of it in the exact same terms as I would a business. You have your income, you have your expenses, and you have your net profit. And I view a family budget the exact same way. So it's funny. It's funny you brought that up because I was thinking that exact same thought the other day.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Uh,
It is amazing. And maybe that's just historical or traditional ways that women or men handled money, or now, how, and then what do you teach your children based on their gender, right? So then when they go out and do whatever they do, so it's really, you're kind of always picking up messages
yeah.
about it.
In my family, it was the opposite. My mom was the super frugal one, and my dad was the spender. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think it can probably happen either way.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not really saying that one or the other can't be the saver or the spender.
Right.
It's more how it's an emotional thing. It's women might look at things a little differently. Like I said, marriage not being a business, that it's more of an emotional thing.
Right.
And it really starts to hang up when we start to talk about finances.
Yes. I think it's both. I think
Hmm.
there's the emotional aspect of it, and I
Hmm.
think you have to look at it like you are, together in it for the long haul, and you're planning for a future.
Hmm.
And it's one of the reasons why money is one of the top two. You can imagine what the other one is. Top two reasons why marriages split
Hmm.
up. There's a very good reason behind that. And I honestly think some of it is our societal hangups that we have about just freely being able to discuss money.
Hmm.
Think about on the job. I mean, are you able to freely tell your peers what you make? You can't do that. That's
Mm-mm.
taboo in just about every organization out there. And
Hmm.
people keep their money and their thoughts about money very, very private and very under the cuff. And I think that has a tendency to stop us from learning. Because if we were all freely able to discuss money and the impacts it has on our life, and the surrounding things in our life, like security and stability and planning for retirement, et cetera, raising children, getting them on their own. If we were able to freely discuss that, I think we would learn a lot more, and we would, probably look at it in a different light.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's great because I I know that just talking about money with other people, it can create a lot of anxiety for some people, right? So there's this protective mechanism inside of us, or it's secretive, or I have noticed over the years, sometimes with spending, there was some guilt or feelings of shame in
Yeah,
spending. So you're right, money is this taboo thing that has all of these angst around it.
it does. It does. And it has a lot in common with food
Mm-hmm.
and almost, like the compulsivity maybe of
Mm-hmm.
food. There's a
Mm-hmm.
compulsivity, I think, associated with money,
Mm-hmm.
where that spending, that shopping or whatever makes you feel better about yourself or something, or maybe you're using it as a stress reliever. And I think that looking at a lot of those behaviors is part of what I do as a financial coach. And that's, helping people put money in its proper perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to make you happy. That's an absolutely true saying. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
But what it will do is it does lend to your personal freedom and your personal security and your personal stability. Because what freedom, security, and stability do you have if you live your life indebted to another person or another entity? So those are the factors that you have to think about. So I think that compulsivity thing goes back to, like, looking at the inner behaviors. What's causing you to want to shop for for a stress reliever? Could you
Mm-hmm.
find a better outlet? There's all sorts of things, and I think we all have our indulgences there.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly do. Like I told you the other day, I can go drop $500 at a nursery because I love gardening and plants, and that's my thing. So, but I keep it in check. So, because I could do real damage.
I'm sure we all can. It is amazing how impulse driven we are.
Yes.
And one of the things that I've learned about, from God and Jesus is that, we're all energetic beings. And that
Absolutely.
energy, that everything is energy. The money's energy too.
It is. It
And
is.
and I have a little sticky note here to remind me that he kept telling me, stop living from energetic memories and live from truth. And
Yes.
your money memories are such a big deal in
Mm-hmm.
what's going on and the impulses that drive all of us. Like you mentioned with food, it's the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Is the more that we feel shame and guilt about something, anything, and even money creates its own shame or guilt because we have ideas of what it's like to be wealthy
Exactly.
or what it's like to be poor.
There's a whole slew of emotions. We're bombarded with, opulence. Just turn on the TV and you're bombarded with it. And you get into this mindset like, oh my God, I just don't measure up to the
Mhm.
rest of society and the way they're living. When in the reality of it is, if you stop and think of it, it's a 0.01% of the population that is looking like that's representing this, that's being represented, and they're overrepresented, I would say. Actually, getting back to what you just said about money memories, I think just like you would break away from a dysfunctional relationship and let's say you got out of a dysfunctional relationship and you moved on to a new personal romantic relationship, you would say to your new romantic partner, those memories are in my past, I want to create new memories with you. Well, you could do the same and apply the same to money. I want to put those bitter money memories in the past and let's start making some new money memories. So, yeah.
That's a great way to look at it. I really love that. It's like I'm breaking up with you, my money
Right, I'm
memory.
breaking up with that thought process.
I'm
Yeah.
turning over a new leaf,
Yep.
and I want to have a more conscious way of dealing with my money.
Definitely.
Mhm. One of the things that I had mentioned to you that I could get um, pulled into thinking, okay, God takes care of everything. I don't have to worry. I'm always provided for, and I am. But at the same time, how do I manage my money? How do I be a good steward over
Right.
what I have? And merging those two things together, that consciousness is not just I need to connect with divine love
Right.
and expand myself. It's also being conscious of how you walk in the world and maintain who you are. And that's a
Exactly.
whole journey in itself because, you could get
It is. It
stuck
is.
on this one track and then go, oh, wait a minute, there's a whole other part of me that I need to really focus on. It's the whole thing.
Exactly. Absolutely. And yeah, it's just it's all it's exactly what you said. I totally agree.
Well,
I totally
we have some great comments on here, so I thought maybe we could read some of them. We have Jeanette Wesolowski on with us, and she said, "I didn't have
Hi,
a good
Jeanette.
I didn't have a good foundation for handling money either." And she said, "Thank God my husband did, and that she's learned a lot from him."
Hmm.
And, so many of us, that are in a um, female-male relationship, that it is the male that was always good with the money or was taught how to manage money maybe more than a female has.
Right.
um, and that's a whole parenting thing.
Hmm.
And she said that she was lucky enough to be married to him. So he taught her. Oh, Robert's saying this. Robert's on there. He's saying that she was lucky enough to, so he taught me a lot as well. And so they're really enjoying this conversation.
Good.
And it is great to have somebody to help you learn new skills. Like you can say, I want to break up with my old coping mechanisms with money, but then it's another thing to, how do I do that? What are the tools that I need to help myself start to look at money in a whole different framework?
Well, based on what you just said, there's that God's going to take care of me, God's going to provide me, and I'm right there on the same page with you, believing in God. And yes, He's performed miracles in my life without a doubt. Jesus has, and has provided for me. And but He also, I look at it like He also gave me a brain to use, and He also gives us all free will. So, you can make bad decisions and still be a firm believer in God. So, and you can make great decisions and still be a firm believer in God. I don't think he pushes you in a direction. I don't think there's ever any manipulation coming from a good source, which God, of course, is the ultimate good source. And just breaking those bad habits are all choices that we can make and that we can control. And I think we have to get over this mindset. I think the bigger 30,000 foot level discussion is that we really are in charge of more than we think we're in charge of. And that's where I incorporate a little bit of life coaching in with financial coaching. Because you do have to look at those behaviors. I mean, as a financial coach, you can't tell people what to invest in. I can't say, oh, buy this stock. This is a hot tip. I can't do that. But I can say, right now you're only saving 2% of your money, and putting it in a tax deferred vehicle. You really need to bring that up to 10 or 15%. And what can you cut back in your other areas? What are your wants? What are your needs? There's a whole mindset that you have to address. But like you just stated before, a lot of that is symptomatic, but our show, I think, is going to be really great about not only looking at the systematic issues on a very detailed analysis type, for lack of a better word, but also looking at the behaviors and the root cause thinking that drives that in the first place. I think that's what's going to be very interesting to explore, Deb.
I totally agree with you, Mark. And I think that's allowing people to get to know themselves better and without judgment, that you're just learning some more about yourself of what did you learn about money and what are the things going on inside of you emotionally that are creating angst about money or impulsiveness about money or shame and guilt or your ideas of what you learned about, who are you? What do you think about somebody who's wealthy? What are your thoughts about a person that has wealth?
Exactly.
And so, I also look at wealth and success as more than just money. Is how are you managing your life and how do you feel about your life and yourself? And it doesn't mean that it has tons of dollar signs.
Absolutely.
After that.
It's absolutely the message I want to get across is that first of all, at your first point, there is no judgment at all, because we all have made these mistakes. And like a good parent would do, I want to teach people that, not to make the same mistakes I've made, or to avoid making certain mistakes and try as much as possible.
Yeah. And that's so needed, Mark, because like you said, we don't really hear a lot of that, or maybe it's in a more business industry where you're talking about those things, but people that are everyday people don't always have a money manager or somebody to teach them to go to And usually if you go to a money manager, they don't talk about your behavioral issues. They don't talk about
No, they don't.
your impulses.
They're all about the vehicles and the strategies and all that. And I can talk a little bit to the strategies because the
Mhm.
strategizing is part of looking at the behaviors, you know, but I just can't give specific because you have
Mhm.
to be, specifically you have to be a financial advisor to do that.
Mhm. Yeah. So the emotional baggage
Lack
is
of a better word, right?
it's really kind of self-destructive, and I've been all over the scale on that. I have
Yep.
been from being a great saver, managing money really well, and all the way to the other extreme of like, whatever, I don't know what's going on with me but right now, but here I am in the midst of a mess that I've created. And I need help getting out of it. Uh,
I'm right there with you though. I mean, I was in my 20s, I was learning as I go, and I didn't pay any attention to any of this. It wasn't until I was close to my mid 30s that I started to really, I think around, actually, it occurred to me around maybe 29 or 30 that, this path I'm on, what's it leading to, what's it going to be? Because I'm one of those people that this is one of my faults. Like I have a problem staying in the present moment. And like what is it? I think there's a great saying I heard the other day, like, you should learn from your past, live in the moment, but plan for the future. I have a hard time living in the moment sometimes because I'm constantly either dwelling on the past or I'm thinking about the future. But I'm trying to turn that around, and I think I've done a pretty good job of, and that's where my husband Robert has helped me, actually, is helping me to realize that enjoying life along the way aspect is also extremely important because there are no guarantees. Yes, you should plan because of medical science, the way it's advanced and everything. You should plan on living into your 80s, possibly 90s. It's happening with more and more people because of the advances with medicine, et cetera, et cetera. However, we all know people in our age group who have passed away.
Mhm.
And tragically in their 50s or even younger. I'm in my late 50s, and so you don't want that to happen either,
Mhm.
because I don't think I'd want to be looking at myself from the other side and like, oh my God, I just didn't enjoy life that much. I spent everything planning like I was going to live to 90, but I died at 59. So you kind of have to strike the balance between those two. Enjoy life a little, make sure you're enjoying life a little, but then also make sure you are trying to put something aside for your future and planning, like the compass points to.
Right, right. Oh, that's great. And I've been through uh, many different ways over the years of trying to budget, to plan a budget. My husband do that, and I do this every month. We have a budget, and then we go over the month's budget. Um,
It's
and
easy to
and
do.
and and then I went through a period of time earlier on that we made envelopes, and that we put cash in the envelopes, and that's what we were supposed to use instead of the credit card all the time. So we've tried so many different ways um, to manage, and it's mostly me. It's manage me. Because he could spend no money and he's totally happy. So like you were saying, we're on both two different extremes, but it isn't. And then we've worked really hard at planning goals together of what we wanted to achieve, like say we wanted to purchase a house or something like that. And so we've done all these different things. And then I've also included God in my discussions at times with money.
Hmm.
When we're going to make decisions, I would say, what is the best way to handle this situation? And I would get feedback from God or Jesus. And then I've had a discussion with God, which was really interesting because I was in my one of like, well, you're always going to take care of me, so it doesn't matter. And he said to me, Deb, if you had a briefcase and we were standing on a bridge somewhere over water, and you had $1 million, I give you $1 million in the briefcase, would you throw it over into the water? And I said, no, that would be really dumb. And it was sort of like, okay, that means that I need to be more thoughtful and conscious and kind of not live up in this airy place all the time. That I'm still walking in this world, and I need to
Yeah,
learn
absolutely.
how to do that.
And then he said, I'm going to throw this guy Mark into your life. And
Yes, because he's going to get this straightened out right now.
exactly. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, though. God's a loving God. He wouldn't want us to, throw it away. And he doesn't want us to be, spend the last 10 years of our lives living in a room with a chair. That's not, I can't believe that's part of his plan either. So those are the places where we have free will and we have to make those choices. And so much of life really does come down to choices. It really does.
It certainly
That's
does.
what I want to emphasize.
Yeah, and another thought came to me about, a lot of people are into the law of attraction,
Hmm.
and they want to manifest things and they want to manifest money.
Hmm.
But also, when we know that some people have received really large sums of money, like say they did hit the lottery and then they lost it all within a few years, right?
Yeah. Yep. Because they're
So,
not used to handling that amount of
right,
money.
right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is a mindset too, isn't it? One of my old business partners, I'm trying to remember what he said to me, is like when you gain more wealth, you have to be able to handle that, and that it doesn't change you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That you
You have
don't
to
you
remain who you are.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Or
Definitely.
how to grow with it. That, okay, so I have more security now. How can I grow with that rather than still sitting and being scared all the time
And
too?
how can you also use it to help other people? You
Yes.
know, everybody,
Philanthropy.
part of this stigmatization of money is that it's this awful thing and it makes you selfish, it makes you greedy. But by the same token, there are so many philanthropic people out there who have really, really helped people with their money. So,
Hmm.
it can't be a bad thing, when it has done a lot of good. Does it have, like many things, the potential to corrupt a person? Yes, but that's when you can either choose to go down that, again, a choice. You can choose to go down that light path, or you can choose to go down that darker path. So that's where we make that choice, and it'll affect us, and we'll decide which way we want to go with that, and we have to hope and pray that we stay in that good lane.
Hmm. Well, I'm really looking forward to your show,
Thank you.
and to be able to talk about all of these awesome topics and try to take the tabooness out of money.
That's really
And
important.
it is really important because I think that many of I've sat in on some workshops that were teaching you about how to manifest money, and it always comes down to what are your beliefs about money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's where it starts.
Hmm.
That's where it starts. If you demonize it, like a lot of society, can tend to do,
Hmm.
by pushing it under the rug too, you may subconsciously not want it in your life, and you may actually will that into being. You know, I don't like, I have this impression about people who have money, therefore I'll never consciously or subconsciously manifest it because
Hmm.
it's a bad thing. I don't want it in my life.
Hmm.
So that's part of that whole chain of self-sabotaging behaviors that I hope to address, that I do address as a financial coach and consultant.
Yeah, and that's just wonderful because, like I said, most consultants don't get into that kind of
No,
depth
no.
of understanding.
Some of my business background was dealing with clients, namely, a merchant population, and helping them be more profitable. And that is part of my business background. And that's where the consulting can come in, because I can parlay it either into a business type of a relationship, or into on a personal level as well. I prefer working on the personal level, because I love seeing the changes come about on a person. And I think this is all related to, the very initial thought process that's made me think this was a great idea for a show, was how it ties into your overall peace of mind and feeling centered with yourself, by addressing those self-sabotaging behaviors. We can work toward that, more of that peace of mind, that contented feeling, and just feeling more, just getting rid of that stress, or trying to minimize it as much as possible by the choices we make.
Yeah, we always want to be more peaceful.
Absolutely.
And
Who doesn't
probably
want that?
no, and I would imagine, like you said, money is like one of the number one things that stress people.
It really does.
And not just ends marriages, it stresses almost everybody.
It does. The mismanagement of it, which is derived from these ill-conceived perceptions about it, I believe, in many, many cases.
Yeah, but you could get caught up in so many different ways of looking at it. Like, I don't have enough, and maybe somebody that doesn't have enough money, and getting stuck in that feeling of poverty. And then even if you have a good amount of money, you could still be sitting there, which I have been in both places, like it's still not enough, because I'm going to lose it or outlive it, or whatever the case might be. Is like, it's scary when what do they tell you? You need about $1 million. It probably went up from that.
Yeah.
They used to say you need $1
all
million.
over the map. Yeah, it's all over the map.
Yeah, to retire.
Yeah.
So then you have more people today saying, I don't even know if I can retire. I don't know if I'll ever be able to retire. And then you have things happen like the stock market. So you have all of these not little, but you have all these things outside of you that also affect your money.
Like what we've just been through for the last 4 months. Glaring example, right in our faces. Like, if these last 4 months didn't teach me anything about, like having the importance of an emergency fund or a rainy day fund, I don't know what else would teach me that. Because it's one of the big lessons I took away from these last 3-4 months.
Right. Yeah, and these are things that I never thought of before, is how much money do I need in the bank just on cash, in case one of us gets sick, or something happens and you need 2 years of income or something, or 3, to make sure that you can take care of things. And these are things that my husband has always been talking to me about, and I've always just been like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, I can't give specific advice, but if you look at something, for instance, like the stock market, in any 30-year period of time since its inception, it has always returned between 8 and 10%. So if you are investing for the long haul, and you start at a young age, and you just put it aside and you forget about it, especially if you have an employer that matches and offers a 401k, which most do that want to attract top staff, top clients, top talent. That's the word I'm looking for. Just escaped me. If you want to attract top talent, a 401k and matching is something that most companies will offer nowadays. And by all means, take advantage of that. That's something that's a gift horse you do not want to look, in the mouth. At least contribute up to the amount that they are matching. Ideally you'd want to contribute at, 15%, 18%, or in that range, something like that, but at least contribute like what they're matching. You know, there's no guarantee that in any 1 or 2 or 3 year period, it's going to be, you know, a phenomenal return. But if you just look at any graph of the stock market since its inception, you know, it always averages over a 30-year period of time between 8 and 10%. So those are important things to think about, and putting your money to work for you, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that they have to stash it away and never put it to work for them and then just live off of it. Well, that's like having a bucket full of something and you take a little bit out of it every day. Eventually you're going to have an empty bucket. You know, so.
Right. And that's funny because, you know, I can go back and remember money being wrapped up in tinfoil in the freezer.
Is this when you guys were trying to budget?
No,
Oh, okay.
this
Oh,
was
you're
growing up when I was little.
Growing up, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, you know,
Well, you go back, yeah. That's funny. That's funny. That's hilarious. Yeah.
Well, people used to stuff money in their mattresses or underneath it. People did all kinds of things.
Do.
And sometimes when I look at what's going on out there, I'm like, maybe we should just do that again. But yes, it doesn't grow. It doesn't.
Don't have to worry about your mattress going under, right? The bank might, but your mattress won't. That's funny. Yeah, that old-fashioned mentality, you know, because I'm almost 60 years old, and you know, my mom is 88, and I know that mentality of that generation. My God, oh yeah, you know, yeah.
But that's what we learned from, right?
Yes, exactly.
We learned that all of those beliefs came generationally came up with us. So you know, what I was thinking is you and I talked a little bit about Susie Orman, and the first time
Love
that
her.
I listened to her, she talked about your first money memory and how much that plays a role in your belief system of how you handle money and what you think about money.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know if you want to tell your first money memory.
Yeah, mine's probably very unique because I grew up in a family of restaurants. You know, my dad owned a few restaurants. Some did better than others, but you know, one in particular is the one that I grew up in as a child. And I just remember at a young age, you know, knowing how to count. I could count money at like 5, 6 years old as fast as with the bank teller, you know, like this. You know, my parents just slowly gave me more and more responsibilities in the business. I remember my mom, you know, I remember like watching a TV show, it might have been like the Brady Bunch or something like that. And they were talking about having an allowance, and I might have been about 6 years old. And I remember going to my mom and dad and saying, how come I don't get an allowance? I want an allowance. So then I think in those days, because it was the 60s, you know, it might have been like $1 or $2 that she gave me for the week for helping with tiny little chores, you know. And I remember there was like a 5 and dime not too far away from the business. And I remember going over to it. I think it was like a Woolworths or one of those. And going over, and she was like, now you can buy whatever you want under $2, but remember to bring back the change. It's like all these little, like, you know, always preaching that cognizance of minding the pennies, minding the dimes and the nickels and all that. And, you know, I grew up like that. And she was the one extreme. My dad was pretty much the other extreme. So I saw both. But that was my first memory of just feeling overwhelmed going over to this 5 and dime, and I could get anything I want, running up and down. But then in the back of my mind, also thinking, you know, oh, but I can't go over $2. You know, it's got to be like, you know, 160. If it's 169, I got to remember that I have that 31 cents and maybe put it back in my piggy bank or something later. You know, that's what she would have wanted me to do. I know how my mom is. Still, she's 88. She's still going strong. So
That's great.
She would tell me that right now today too.
That's awesome. But then you got that saving mentality.
Yeah, I did. I did.
It's, you look back and you go, oh, you know, in some ways you could see how you were groomed
Mhm.
to be doing what you're doing right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's the perfect career path for me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
really, if you think about it, my money management and financial common sense goes back to being a child.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up in a family business, I had responsibilities at 7, 10, 14 years old in the family business that no other kid. I was like helping do purchasing. I was helping my mom figure out payroll, and that's back
Mm-hmm.
before any software existed. You did it all by hand and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. And, you know,
Right.
yeah, so there's a lot to it. There's a lot to the restaurant business. It's not
Mm-hmm.
it's not an easy path. I mean, my mom and dad were like they were they were devoted. That was time consuming, and I saw that value though of hard work, and I
Mm-hmm.
saw how hard they work. That's another thing that helped. That's I would say is also another really prevalent money memory for me is I saw how hard they worked. And it was hard selling sandwiches that were 65 cents a piece. You didn't make a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
You had to sell a lot of sandwiches just to cover your light bill and your, whatever. It
Mm-hmm.
was so I saw
Right.
that at a young age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, seeing how hard your parents worked, and I know I've worked really hard over the years too, um, and that work ethic.
Absolutely. That's important.
The work ethic is important, but it's also how can it be? Um, we've watched our parents work so very hard, and if you are managing your money in a conscious way, then it doesn't have to be as hard.
Absolutely. And getting back to something you touched on a while ago about one spouse being one way and the other spouse being the other way. My mom and dad, I saw that also merge, excuse me, over time, with them coming closer to the middle because I'd say the first 6 to 7 years when I was a very small child, my mom and dad worked 7 days a week, 11, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's what the
Wow.
restaurant business is all about.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until about 7, 8 years into it that my mom and dad decided Monday's going to be our day off. And so that was an agreement they came to.
Mm-hmm.
It was also around that time, 5, 6, 7 years into it, around those Mondays off, we would always, as a family, because I don't have any brothers and sisters, I'm an only child. And so the three of us would pick a great restaurant somewhere. If it was 50, 60, 70 miles away, no big deal. We're going to go to this restaurant. Monday's our day. We're going to enjoy this as a family. Also around that time, they made sure that we took at least one really good vacation a year. And I'll never forget, like one of the first ones was we went to Italy in 1972 for 2 weeks. And, back then in the 70s, that's a long time that's a lot to pay for, and
Mm-hmm.
so to see my parents evolve like that and my dad, move a little bit more conservative like my mom with the money, but my mom also come a little bit out of her ultra conservative shell and think a little bit more like a, hey, let's live for today kind of a person. It's a nice merging. And I think I actually learned that too from my parents because I think Robert and I we're on a little bit of those two extremes, but I think we've also met close to the middle. He's
Mm-hmm.
taught me some things about, being more spontaneous and living for the day. And I've also shown him some things about, the importance of saving. So I think that frequently happens. I guess you'd call that a
Mm-hmm.
compensating for the other spouse and then meeting and compromising somewhere in the middle. And I think that's actually very healthy.
I agree. I agree. I know the same things happened in my marriage, is that we my husband has uh, wanted to take more risks, and I have stopped spending so much and wanting to save more. So yeah, so we've done the same thing, and I do think it's a good thing
Mhm. It is.
because it's meeting in the middle.
It
It's
is.
being more balanced.
It's
It's
called
being more.
compromise. It's called
Mm-hmm.
compromise. Isn't that really what relationships are about?
It totally.
Yeah.
It's about compromise, and I guess it would be also respect,
Yes, for sure.
right? Is
Hmm.
respecting uh, the contract
Right.
the business agreement that
Right.
you
You
have
never,
between the
right,
two of you.
right, exactly. You never signed a contract that said, we're going to be mirror images of each other. You signed a contract that says, like, you're a being and I'm a being, and we obviously got together because we liked something about each other and we have certain things in common. I think certain things have to be in common for it to work out. And certain things can be different to make it interesting. So, but on some of those big, huge hot button issues like money, I think you have to merge and compromise and come to some sort of an agreement. It's okay if one person likes gardening and the other person likes, surfing. That's fine. Have those two completely divergent type interests. That's not a big deal. But on important matters like, and we don't have children, but like important matters like raising children, you have to come together and form some sort of a compromise and an agreement. And same with money. So I view it the same way.
Yeah, I guess it's teamwork, right?
Yes, that's a good word.
It's teamwork. It's setting goals as a team and trying to work towards them.
Definitely.
But I don't think most people sit down and actually say, what's our goal in 5 years? What's our goals in 10 years? What's our goals in 25 years? Where do we want to see ourselves?
Yeah.
And I think that's missing in a relationship when you start to think about, what do you want to do with your money then?
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, this has been awesome. I'm really enjoying spending time with you and getting to know you some more, and what you will be bringing forth to Enlightened World Network.
Absolutely.
So,
looking forward.
Me too. Can you please tell people how to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. I have a Facebook page called Mindful Money Matters, financial coaching. And also they can email me at financial.coach.mark@gmail.com. I put the dots in there just to make me stand out a little.
Okay, that works.
Yeah.
And you could also private message Enlightened World Network if you have any questions that they would get back to you as well. So this has been fabulous, and I'm so grateful to now have a money teacher, another money teacher, a financial helper in my life. And I know that all of the audience of Enlightened World Network and Angel Heart Radio are going to appreciate that very much. So Mark, your shows will... Oh, you're very welcome. Your show will start this coming Wednesday, the 29th, and it's at noon.
Eastern time.
Eastern time. And I'll be there with you for the first time, getting you started on your new show. And
I think we make a great pair. I love it.
Yeah, I do too. It's very comfortable. Very comfortable.
Same here.
And so we will see you next Wednesday, bi-weekly.
Yes.
When in doubt, never underestimate the power of prayer. You are being listened to and heard throughout the universe, and it always responds with infinite love. Remember to go inside and listen through your heart for the whispers of heaven. I love you, and God bless you.
You've been listening to another fabulous program on Angel Heart Radio. Our goal is to remind you of how much you matter in the world, and to let you know that we appreciate who you are in the world. You can check out who's on, when we're on, and who our guests are at angelheartradio.com. Everything is there. It's all just one click away. Angel Heart Radio programs are powerful tools to help you in your life and your life experience. They are not intended, nor should they, be used to replace your medical or legal advice.
Powered by love, Angel Heart Radio is brought to you by AngelLight777.com. The views and opinions expressed by Angel Heart Radio hosts, guests, co-hosts and associates should not be construed as advice from Angel Heart Radio.